Welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since we've done a video, but we've been doing a lot of traveling. We did get our van back, and we've been using it quite a bit. So I think now that we have over 10,000 miles on it, I think I'm going to go over some of the things we like about it, some of the things that are a little bit quirky, and just kind of give an overall review, our opinion of the van. So here we go. So we live in northern Arizona now. We're above 5,000 feet, and in the winters we do get some snow. We haven't had much lately, nothing that has accumulated, but it does get cold. So because this was marketed as a four-season van, we wanted to take advantage of some of the cold weather items. A couple of those are these guys right here. So we have a water tank heater and holding tank heaters. From what I understand, the water tank, the freshwater tank, is supposed to be a double-walled, which is supposed to help in keeping it from freezing. And it has this tank heater pad mounted to it down below. Now you can't see the pads on the water tank. I don't know exactly where they're mounted up, but I can see them on the holding tanks. And so far we have not had any tanks freeze up at night, and we have been in temperatures in the low 20s. We have had some things freeze up, and I'll go into that a little bit later, but right now it hasn't been the tank itself. We've always had water flowing. We've always had the Truma heater rolling. Right now I have it plugged into shore power at the house. So I always kind of keep it right around 57, 58 degrees. And while it's plugged in, it's on electric only. When we're on the road, we do use the propane only. The electric only uses up a lot of the battery power if you are running only on battery and you don't have a shore power. We went with the darker wood paneling cabinets. We liked, I don't know, we just like this look better. It's not glossy, it's more of a matte finish, and the volume of storage we have in these is actually really nice. The one in the rear is the largest. It goes all the way from side to side. Pretty good volume in there. This one here also, it has some shelves built in, so that's pretty nice. We do have our coffee maker. We'll usually store some food, whatever, in here, but it does have a lot of room up in these cabinets. Like I said, this is the largest one. So it goes all the way in there, and I mean, I can stretch my arm all the way to the back. So there's a lot of room. We can store clothes, whatever, in there. And a lot of these are pretty decent size as well. This one has some more electronic hookups. And this one's just a little bit wider than the previous one, but they're pretty good. The drawers they have are either very shallow and not a lot of room, but it's enough to store, you know, your silverware and that kind of stuff for cooking. This one doesn't have as much either. And this guy was, I think, kind of more of an afterthought. But again, it's got some storage there. The one under the sink is very narrow because your sink is right here, which means your sink isn't very deep either because your refrigerator's sitting right here. So you can't really swap out your sink to go with a deeper one, and it is not very deep. And your sink, talking about the sink, it only has a 7-gallon gray tank for this particular sink. Obviously you have a toilet that goes to your black tank. Have not had that freeze up. The shower drain is down here and goes into a gray tank via a water pump. So as your shower fills up, you have to press a switch. That's your shower drain switch, and that will pump it out to the gray tank that is in the rear of the vehicle. Your sink, however, goes into a 7-gallon gray tank, which is almost right below the sink. When that fills up on the outside, when you go to drain your tanks, walk around here. So you have your black tank waste comes out of this end, and the gray tank for the sink comes out of this end. But you have to use this macerator pump to pump it from that gray tank up and over out this way. Well, that macerator pump has a heating unit on it, but it's on the outside of a metal box that basically protects the pump. It's not touching the pump at all, so that heating pad isn't keeping the macerator pump from freezing at all. So that will have to be changed. I'll go under there and I'll show you where those are. So I did have the macerator pump freeze up on me, and the little gate froze up, and I ended up pulling the cable out of the little door that blocks off that tube. So I just had to re-plumb that cable back in there and take the set screw out, put the cable back into the housing, and lock that set screw down. And once everything thawed out, I was able to go into the back of the macerator pump and manually spin it to get that chunk of ice out of there. They at least give you a manual, it's basically you put a flathead screwdriver into it and you can rotate it manually to dislodge anything that might get stuck. But it was blowing the 20 amp fuses when I was trying to use the switch. So just so you know, those things under the rig are probably going to freeze up. We have never winterized it. I've never put any antifreeze in any of the systems, and really the only time I've ever had anything be a problem was that macerator pump. Now down below, you have a manual water fill and an overflow, and if you were to winterize, that is down here. So I have not used any of these. I haven't had to winterize any of that. You noticed I do put a piece of foam up under here to keep this lower portion, right, all your cold air sinks. So to keep this from freezing, it's close to the door. There's not a lot of insulation in here from Winnebago. That's a whole thread on their Facebook page for the Boldt owners and wannabes. A lot of complaints about the fact that there's not a lot of insulation in there. That will be a separate video. I have taken apart some of the panels, and they have added these kind of pieces of foam into the cutouts of the door, but everything else is totally exposed and ready for cold weather to get in. And in the cold weather, I noticed if I had my hands up against the dual pane windows here, very comfortable. You know, it insulates very well. Put my hands down here, this is just like a coating or a sheet that they put over, again, the metal framing. That metal, easily 10 to 15 degrees cooler here versus here. So these are insulating very well because they're a thermal pane window. There's hardly any insulation back in there at all. So one of the projects I'd like to do is figure out how to take this framing off and then be able to stuff some more insulation in here. But again, with the heater running or the air conditioning running, you can keep it comfortable in here. it's obviously you're just using that much more energy. When we do have it parked at the house, I usually have all the shades up, whether it's summertime or wintertime, to try to regulate the temperature within the unit. Our window coverings, front window, windshield, side windows, these are really well made deals that came with the Boldt. And in the winter, I'll have the black side facing out so it collects that thermal energy and kind of traps it inside. In the summertime, I'll put the white side out so it reflects as much as possible, but they really do help keep this cabin area pretty comfortable. And then obviously shades just up. We usually run the shade in the rear down for privacy and obviously for some more insulation. The glass back there is not thermal paned, so it does either let in a lot of heat or a lot of cold, or let it out. Either way, it's not obviously insulated well. If the weather's just kind of nice all around, we have the windows open, I'll roll that up, we'll let some more light in. I'm pretty sure both the BL and the KL come with a TV unit in them. And, you know, when we're working on the road, we're not really watching TV, or I've got the iPad and we can watch shows. But what we have found useful is Julie will hook up her laptop and actually can run kind of a dual screen. So this is like computer ready. You can hook it up, and so she'll sit back here and have her laptop setting up, and then she'll have this big screen set up as spreadsheets or whatever, and then her laptop for whatever. But it has come in handy. I thought about just taking this whole thing out because we really don't watch the TV. The digital antenna will pull in a few channels, you know, depending on where you are. So it's not a totally useless item. It's all personal preference, right? So we'll probably keep this in here. It does rattle like crazy when we're driving down the road, so I do need to figure out how to mount this up so it won't rattle so much. I have noticed some of the screws that hold this JBL speaker on actually have fallen off because it's rattling so bad. So I definitely need to go in there, bare minimum, throw some Loctite on some of these screws so they don't back out. If you do get one of these, there are some nuts and bolts throughout the rig that you are going to want to check probably after every trip. You know, this TV being one of them. Under the rig, there are some things I need to check. When I added the owl accessories on the back, obviously you got to check those because that's added on. But they make a pretty good product. I'm not too worried about those. So far, nothing has come loose. But just over time, you know, these things, the suspension, the standard suspension on this 3500 four-wheel drive chassis unit is pretty soft. It bounces a lot. We are on schedule with Agile to get one of their rip kits installed, so I'll let you know when that happens and how much it improves. I hear it improves quite a bit, but we'll let you know how much it improves the ride and some of these rattles. So we have also had this in the summertime up here in northern Arizona, and that can get into the 90s and 100s. And again, while we're parked at the house, we'll have it plugged into shore power. And while it's plugged into shore power, I just use a regular 15 amp plug adapter on our shore power line, and I can run the air conditioner without any issues for hours during the day to keep it cool in here. And that's mostly for the battery life. They suggest with the Volta, you kind of keep it within a temperature range, and with the heater running in the winter and the air conditioning running in the summer, we don't have any problems running that. We did buy the Volta Bluetooth connection module from their website, and that you have to take off this panel here, and you unplug the state of charge from the unit. You go to their website, you can kind of see how it all plugs in. It literally, it's a plug and play. It's super easy. You unhook the plug there, you put this thing in between that unit, and then you download the app and via Bluetooth, you can check your battery status, your battery temperature, whether it's charging from the alternator. It gives you all kinds of good, useful information. So this unit does come with 2 solar panels up on the roof. I believe we have our solar issues finally sorted out from Boldt. They sent a tech out to work on that. We got a couple conflicting, yes it should be this way, or no it shouldn't be that way, but regardless it's working. But it's only, with the 2 panels, it's only 180 watts going in, so it's barely keeping like the refrigerator going, but it is something as long as you have some sun out. Like I said before, we added these owl units here. This is their expedition box and spare tire carrier ladder. And then in this box here, I have our black tank accessories. So I have some heavy duty contractor bags, garbage bags that I keep the black hose in, plus extra bags, a bag of nitrile gloves, our additive to the black tank, and our black tank flush hose that we hook up on the side of the unit when I'm dumping out. And everything is waterproof and self-contained, again, inside this box. And then I just use a ratchet strap here to keep it on top, and it doesn't go anywhere. So if you have a carrier similar to this and you have, lashing points, this is definitely a good way to store your black hose. Winnebago does give you this little deal here to store a hose, and I keep a hose in here just for the gray tank. That way, I don't have, obviously, the nasty stuff up in this tank and dripping down while you're trying to put it away. But that's gray hose only. And because it's only a 7-gallon tank, well, I'm dumping that a lot. So one of the things I noticed after we took delivery and I started going through the systems, before we took any trips, I wanted to check out like the water systems. So the sink, the hot water heater, all of the PEX connections that run all through under this cabinet and under the unit for the water systems. Right below this seat cushion, there's an access panel, and that's where the water filter is. Well, when we got our goodie bag from the dealership that came with the unit, there was like a brand new water filter in there. And I was thinking, oh great, man, they even give you a backup water filter. No, that was the original water filter. They never installed it in the actual water filter that's right down here. So I had to take all that stuff apart and decharge the system and put in the water filter. So if you get one of these, it may or may not be installed, and there may be a legitimate reason why they didn't do it. I don't know. I would think that in an RV prep, that's one of the things you'd want to make sure that was in there. Another system I found that was kind of failing is under this rear passenger seat. Move some of these cushions out of the way. This is advertised as like a spare bunk that can fold out. Hold on a second. Okay, we're back now. I have the table removed. So this is advertised as a spare bed that can fold out, and it definitely does that. And then your cushions go right back onto here. Well, under this is your Truma water heater and cabin heater. So I wanted to check all the PEX lines and electronics, and when we were having issues with the Volta system, there's some of that wiring under there as well. So I wanted to get access to this, so I took out these screws, and there was a screw there. You notice it is not there anymore. I don't know if you can see it, But right here, this is your exhaust hose for the Truma heater. The screw that was here was quite a long screw, and it goes through this board past the frame to hold the board to the frame, and it also went right into the exhaust hose. So I suppose if I had not disturbed it at all, it would have been fine, but because I removed the screw, now I have a hole in my exhaust hose, which then puts carbon monoxide potentially into the cabin. So if you do buy one of these, new, used, definitely you want to check that out. And if there is a hole in your exhaust hose from a screw that is or may not no longer be there, you want to plug that up. Up in this cabinet here, this is what is above that rear passenger seat. This is your solar controller. Again, this is for the BL model only. I don't know where all the electronics are in the KL, but in the BL, it's in this upper cabinet. For whatever reason, when it's, all your shades are up or doors open, whatever, this becomes a dark cavernous location and you can't see anything in there. So we added these magnetic travel lights. And right now it's set to turn on with motion. So when I close this door, it turns off, and when I open the door, it automatically turns on. And then I also have another mount right here, and it's just a magnet that sticks to that little steel plate on this frame. So I know these aren't the most exciting videos, but what we have noticed since owning this is that there are no user reviews of these Boldt units. There are a lot of reviews or walkthroughs from dealerships, but what we have noticed either on our own experience dealing with either the dealer or Winnebago, or reading other people's dealings with Winnebago and trying to get some of the issues fixed on here, there have been a lot of problems on these, and these are not cheap RVs. Nothing's cheap these days, but again, we've kind of gone over that for some of the price points they're charging on these, the issues that we had run into, we should have never run into. And this isn't going to be another rant video. We just want people who are interested in buying these to be aware of some of the issues you may run into. A lot of the ones we ran into, a lot of Boldt owners have run into. But then there are like the unicorn units out there where people have said, oh, we've never had a problem. And that's great. And I'm really happy for them. And I hope if you guys who are watching are interested in Boldts and purchase one, that you're one of those too, that you don't run into any issues, or if you buy a used one, that the previous owners have addressed a lot of the issues. Overall, we've always liked the idea and the layout of this system. It was just, I think they tried to push so many out the door so fast that it was a nightmare trying to fix these issues or have these issues fixed in a timely manner so that we could do what we wanted to do and kind of travel and have fun and work out of and live in the RV. And clearly we don't live in it. We have a home base, we have a home, but when you're on the road, this is your home. You don't want to have to rent hotels, and you don't want to have to rent vehicles because your unit broke down and is in the shop for a month at a time or more in some cases. So for those of you who are looking into Boldts, they potentially are really great units. For those of you who already have them, we hope you're enjoying them, and we hope to meet some of you out on the road. And again, overall, we kind of like the unit. We kind of have a sour taste in our mouth because of the dealer interaction and Winnebago interaction. Again, I've heard people have great interactions with Winnebago. Awesome. Unfortunately, that wasn't us. So if you guys have any other questions or comments you want to throw our way, feel free. Comment section's open. We'll be glad to read through them and answer any questions you have. Talk to you guys later.